All right, welcome everybody. Jennifer Gonzalez, Communications Coordinator for the Green Bay Police Department. We're here today to announce a multi-jurisdictional traffic safety mission to reduce overall intentional acts of reckless driving across Brown County. Here today we have City of Green Bay Mayor Eric Genrich, Green Bay Police Department Chief Chris Davis, Wisconsin State Patrol Captain Dan Grubley, and we're going to begin with remarks from the mayor.
All right, thanks so much, Jen, for the introduction. Thanks to you all for being here. I want to thank our police chief and our police department for taking on this initiative, but of course want to acknowledge and thank our regional partners and the State Patrol for collaborating in some of these enhanced enforcement efforts that are kicking off and extending over the course of the next few weeks. I think everybody understands this is a real problem across the country and across the state, and unfortunately we're not immune from that here in the Green Bay region. We've had some recent tragic incidents in Bellevue and village of Alloway, city of Green Bay. We obviously had that accident where that building was taken out by a reckless driver, and so so we're very serious about taking on this issue and this problem within this community. But I think it's extra helpful when you have the relationships that our police department has with regional and state partners, and so looking forward to some of these efforts that are to come here. The chief, I think, is going to get into some of the statistics in terms of what we've been doing so far this year, but it's encouraging. I think oftentimes we talk about getting compliance and educating drivers, and obviously that's important, but those that are breaking the law, that are behaving recklessly on our roads and are speeding excessively, deserve to be held accountable and to be punished, and so that's what we're interested in doing as well. Looking forward, we have also been talking with our law department and are interested in implementing some of the things that have been made available because of the legislature's passage of some reckless driving bills and the governor's signature on those bills. So looking forward to potentially impounding vehicles that have been involved in some of these reckless driving incidents. Finally, I think a lot of people understand that enforcement and education, those aren't the only solutions. I think engineering also needs to be addressed, and so what we're going to be doing is hopefully deploying some of our community development block grant dollars in eligible areas to implement traffic calming measures with speed tables and potentially narrowing streets. We had a really nice announcement of some of our plans to implement rapidly flashing beacons in some of our crosswalks around town and speed feedback signs. So there's a lot to be done to tackle this problem in a holistic way, but obviously enforcement is an important part of that equation, and that's what we're talking about today, and just very encouraged that we have the level of collaboration between our Green Bay Police Department here with our regional partners and with our State Patrol. So with that, I'm going to kick things over to Chief Chris Davis.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for being here. Traffic safety is one of the biggest public safety concerns that we hear about regularly from our community. And as the mayor said, we've seen a rash of serious injury and even fatal traffic collisions here in our city and in the surrounding area. And in response to this, obviously, there are kind of three traditional legs to the traffic safety stool. There's education, engineering, and enforcement. And our goal with this mission that we're embarking on with our public safety partners is education and enforcement. So far this year, just in response to some of our focused efforts with regard to traffic safety, we've seen an 18% increase in citations issued for speed violations or for reckless driving violations, and a 48% increase in citations issued for speed violations, and then another 25% increase just in warnings. Between citations and warnings for speed violations in the city, we're up over 2,500 at this point in the year. That is reflective of our organization's commitment to keeping our streets safe and keeping everyone who uses our roadways safe, not only people in cars, but also vulnerable road users like pedestrians, people on bikes and motorcycles and other forms of transportation. So for the rest of this month, on selected days, we will be working with our friends from Ashwaubenon Public Safety, the Brown County Sheriff's Office, and the Wisconsin State Patrol on focused efforts to address speeding, reckless driving, and impaired driving in our respective communities. We really couldn't make this work without the support of our public safety partners, so I definitely want to thank them for this. And the bottom line is that we are committed to addressing this safety issue, and we need the public's help. Slow down, put your cell phone down while you're driving, don't drive impaired, and just remember that split-second decision that you make can have life-altering consequences for you and other people in our community. So with that, I'll turn things over to Captain Greenbay with the State Patrol.
Thanks, Chief. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. As the Chief said, I'm Captain Dan Greenbay with the Wisconsin State Patrol. I just have a few brief comments. First off, the Wisconsin State Patrol is highly committed to improving highway safety and enhancing the quality of life for Wisconsin's citizens and its visitors. These premier law enforcement agencies have collaborated to develop a plan to mitigate those aggressive driving behaviors Chief Davis described, and we will execute that plan. And when you put dedicated law enforcement officers from those incredible agencies on our streets and highways for a focused, collaborative deployment, mark my words, there will be positive results. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Jen.
Thank you. All right, we're going to open it up for questions now. If you could please state your name, the media outlet you represent, and who your question is for. Thank you.
Ben with Fox 11. Just wondering if you could provide more details of how this will work, how much extra help you're getting, what the grant total is, details along those lines.
Chief, do you want to take that? Yep.
Sure, I can give you some of that, and we can get you the specific amount of grant funds that we use for this. Some of it will depend on, because we're doing a lot of this with overtime resources, some of it will depend on how much interest we get from officers in working the overtime. But the plan is for each of these agencies to put a number of officers out commensurate with its size. So we'll be putting out, I think, between 4 and 6 officers and a supervisor a night. I'm not sure with Ashwaubenon or State Patrol, but I'm sure they can answer that. But it'll be enough of a presence, and this is not patrol officers who are also have to go answer radio calls. These resources will be dedicated to traffic safety.
Are you focusing on a specific area at all, or is this just kind of countywide, citywide?
So we'll be rotating the focus areas between places in our city where we experience a high volume of crashes or complaints about traffic safety issues, and other places in Brown County and in Ashwaubenon where they're seeing those issues as well. And the plan is to pick one location, one jurisdiction, I should say, a night to focus on. So one night will be here in Greenbay, one night will be in Ashwaubenon, and one night will be somewhere in Brown County.
Do you feel each area has its own unique set of problems? You find one area there's more reckless drivers, another area more speeders, anything like that at all?
Really, I think a lot of the dangerous driving behaviors we see are universal, and so there in any jurisdiction there are some places where you see more of those issues than others, but all of our different areas of responsibility have those places where we encounter a high volume of unsafe driving behavior.
Where are the problem areas?
We have just some of our high crash corridors here in Greenbay are places along Mason Street and other major arterial roadways where there are a lot of intersections. That's where you tend to see higher volumes of crashes because of speed issues or people not obeying traffic control devices at intersections.
Is there a particular time of day that more of the stuff is prone? Is it late at night when the road's a little more empty, people get a little more reckless, or is it high volume rush hour type stuff? Or?
You can really see it at any time of the day, but what we see is that it picks up throughout the afternoon, and then for impaired driving, you'll see more of that and the even higher, really dangerous levels of alcohol concentration and other drugs that impair driving later in the evening. And so that's why these missions will be focused at times between about 3 in the afternoon and 3 in the morning.
How long has this kind of been in the works, or was there, just a specific incident that you're like, boy, enough is enough, we got to do something to target this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we looked at just some of the crashes that we were seeing around the area in the summer, and that was some of the impetus for this. And you know, we've done efforts like this before. All of the different agencies involved participate in grant-funded, focused traffic enforcement for specific things like seatbelt violations or speed or impaired driving. But we felt like just with some of the things that we were seeing with some of the serious crashes we were having, that now would be a good time to make one of these efforts happen.
Do you know how much money that we're going to be getting from the Department of Transportation for those grants?
I would have to get that specific dollar amount back to you, but there's a specific amount that each of our agencies get from DOT for these focused enforcement efforts on these specific driving behaviors every year. And so we're just using that grant money that we already have to make this mission happen.
And I know Mayor Genrick mentioned some of the, in the reckless driving bills that were passed by the governor in the state budget. Can we talk a little bit more about those and what the governor has put forward in the budget for that?
Take that one, Mary?
Yeah. Without getting into too many of the details of it, there was one in particular that is allowing for local communities to impound vehicles that have been involved in reckless driving incidents. And so that legislation in particular is what our police department and our law department are looking at to see what we can do with our ordinances to enable that kind of procedure to be put in place here.
And that'll go for anyone who's, because I've seen multiple people have 6, 7, maybe 8 OWIs or anything like that. So is it kind of looking at getting those vehicles impounded?
Right, and Commander Warwick might have some input on this as well, but it's really focused on the reckless driving sorts of incidents. Yeah.
I guess previously, what could law enforcement agencies do in those situations? Did they just need this legislation to take away their vehicles, and that wasn't available before?
Well, and I know that some agencies were, or some municipalities were actually beginning the process of impounding vehicles for these sorts of incidents. My understanding is it really makes it very clear that this is something that local units of government can do. You don't have to do any workarounds. You can just sort of implement this kind of a policy with reckless driving infractions or incidents.
Just to be clear, it's impounding and forfeiture, correct? So that they lose the car.
Yeah, I believe so. But yeah, the impounding is the sort of the biggest intervention, just to make sure that somebody can't, just get their car back and engage in the same reckless behavior over and over again.
What would they have to do to get it back?
Again, obviously they would have to, pay the appropriate fines and all the rest, but I'm not sure exactly what the details of that policy would be. Just know that our police department and law department are interested in evaluating whether or not that makes sense. But, to me, we got to be doing everything we possibly can to prevent these sorts of reckless incidents, especially among those that continue to break these laws.
Chief, we're working on those details now, of exactly what that would look like and how we can work in the law to craft our own local ordinance that works for our needs. And that's one of the things that our team is working with the city attorney's office to see what right looks like for that process here in Green Bay.
So based on what you're seeing now, how often would you be able to execute this and impound someone's vehicle, say per month maybe?
That, I would have to speculate to give you that. If we're looking at a total of, we've issued 66 reckless driving citations so far this year, but I don't know how many of those are the same people and repeated offenders. But, it's definitely a tool that we think would be useful here and would help us address this issue.
I kind of touched on my next question. How many of these people are people you see a lot frequently?
Yeah, and I don't have the specific data on repeat reckless driving offenders. I will tell you that we do see one particular issue, for example, with people who will repeatedly engage in reckless driving. An officer will try to stop them, and then they won't stop. And that puts the public at even greater risk. So that's something that we're seeing. That's a population, obviously, that this kind of legislation can help us with as well.